What happens when your Bahamas cruise turns into a chilly Canadian detour and then loses all its ports anyway? And why is Carnival walking back its loyalty overhaul after a passenger uproar? Also, how did a Reddit thread about bras and SeaPass cards manage to divide the cruising world? Hi, I'm Melissa, a university professor who loves to cruise and who loves to talk ship, so let's break down some new cruise news. First up, a cruise that started with sunshine detoured to Nova Scotia and then just stopped. Royal Caribbean's Symphony of the Seas was supposed to sail to the Bahamas. Nice, right? Except hurricane season had other ideas. Twin storms, Humberto and Imelda, passengers were rerouted to Halifax, Canada. That's a pretty big difference. But wait, it gets messier. Even Halifax was a stretch. Weather and port issues meant every other scheduled port stop got axed. So they ended up with just one port in an entirely different country from their original itinerary. And that's it. Royal Caribbean did hand out future cruise credits somewhere in the range of $75 to $200 per stateroom, and they of course refunded the unused port fees. But let's be honest, that's a pretty small consolation if you booked a tropical getaway and ended up in a parka watching lobster boats at one port of call. So I want to know what you think. Do you think this is fair compensation, or would you be a little peeved about it? And by the way, in case you didn't realize this, every single time we book a cruise, we agree to a really lengthy contract of carriage that gives cruise lines the right to make changes to itineraries, in this case for weather, or really for any reason at all, and we just have to accept it. Now, here's a question I get a lot too when it comes to hurricane season. People ask all the time, should I cruise in hurricane season? I say go for it, because what people don't realize is just how long hurricane season is. It's basically half the year. But if you are sailing in peak hurricane season, which runs August through October, it is a little bit more of a risk. But cruise lines and captains are really good about navigating around or ahead of storms. I've cruised through hurricanes plenty of times before, never had an issue. The biggest risk, more so than I think safety things, is the risk of your itinerary being disrupted like this. That's why it's really important to carry travel insurance, and I do have a guide for travel insurance for cruisers. I'll drop the link down below. Now, that was not the only ship scrambling for new ports. Carnival had a full-blown game of musical chairs going on recently due to all this hurricane activity. Elation dropped Princess Key in exchange for Nassau. For me, I think that's an upgrade. Venezia traded Bermuda for Newport, another New England port, and Boston. And Magic ditched Bermuda completely and turned north again with Halifax and St. John. I just got back from Bermuda. I have a video guide and a written guide. I'll drop the link in the comment. I love Bermuda, so I would be super bummed if that happened to me, so I feel bad for these cruisers. Vista also got so thrown off that they ended up canceling Cayman altogether and just returned early to Galveston. Now, here's the twist. Carnival didn't overcomplicate things. They pivoted quickly, which is what they do, and which is why I'm not afraid to cruise in hurricane season. They got passengers to alternate ports, or added a sea day in some cases, and kept itineraries somewhat intact and tried to still give a good cruise experience. But this is the risk that comes with cruising during hurricane season. And hurricane season doesn't just mean choppy seas, it means this planning flexibility, which is why it's really important that when you book excursions, I personally dislike cruise line excursions, but the benefit of booking them is that they are refundable in cases like these. So if you do book independent excursions, it's important to always check the policy to make sure it's refundable, especially in cases of itinerary changes or cancellations due to weather. Now let's talk about something a little spicier and surprisingly divisive. And I usually don't have much of a firm opinion on cruise debates and things that are hotly contested. I usually can see both sides, but with this one, I have some thoughts. The cruise threads in Reddit were lit up recently when someone complained about women using what I call their lady briefcase. Yep, that's my lady briefcase. The original poster thought it was frankly disgusting for women to store their SeaPass cards right here. And the thread exploded. Hundreds of commenters chimed in, and they were pretty split between, ooh, it's gross, and meh, get over it. Cruisers that were in the gross camp seemed to complain that it was all about sweaty cards and hygiene. Others pointed out accurately that women's clothes often don't have pockets. Guess what? No pockets. And bras are basically a built-in safe, or in my case, a built-in briefcase. Now there's even science here. Experts have weighed in saying, yes, skin folds can harbor bacteria, but no, it's not exactly a health emergency. Cash is dirtier. Hands are dirtier. So if you find a woman pull her SeaPass card or her cruise card out of here, it's really no dirtier than her having it in the palm of her hand. And also, dudes, when you wear your cards on your lanyards and it's on your bare chest and belly when you're out at port, Guess what that is too? It's also skin. So if you're worried about your SeaPass card being sanitary, maybe just don't let it touch any skin at all, or maybe wear gloves. So I think this is pretty silly. There's nothing gross about this. This is literally just skin, and this skin sweats just like this skin sweats. So I know how I feel about this, but I wanna know what you think and where you stand with it. Is it a necessity for us women, or is it just a gross and cringe-worthy habit? My take is that there's only 2 no-go places for your cruise card: in your drawers and in your shoes. Everywhere else, fair game. From Reddit wars to Norovirus, yep, it's back and it came roaring back. This is something I report about all the time. It seems like almost every single week there's the story of some nasty Norovirus situation, and this one's pretty bad. Royal Caribbean Serenade of the Seas had a really rough crossing. On a 13-night transatlantic sailing, 71, that's a lot of people, 71 passengers and 1 crew member came down with classic norovirus symptoms. You know, puking and pooping and pooping and puking, the whole deal. The CDC confirmed the outbreak, and Royal Caribbean escalated cleaning and isolation procedures fast. That's always what they do, or at least they say they do. So this is just another case of norovirus on cruises, and it underscores the importance of cruisers having good hygiene. I've seen so many disgusting things on cruises that has actually made me staunchly anti-buffet. I really dislike cruise line buffets, and I avoid them at all costs because of stuff that I've seen. But good practice is wash your hands before every meal. Don't pick over things. Get a fresh cup with every refill. This is all common sense that people should know, but let's make sure we practice what we know, not just talk about it. Next, let's pivot from sick passengers to structural surprises. Royal Caribbean! I love ya. I just got off Utopia of the Seas. It was amazing. I loved it. I want to go back. Although the short cruises, I can't do those. They're tough. And Utopia does 3 and 4 night sailing. So when I cruise Utopia again, I'm going to have to do it back to back. But Royal Caribbean has been plagued by shattering glass, and it happened again. And it was on Utopia. Brand new ship, beautiful new ship. What happened was Utopia just experienced its second, just on Utopia, its second shattered glass incident in 2 months. Now this time, a glass panel in a dining venue cracked dramatically. Thankfully, again, there were no injuries, but photos, of course, flooded the cruise forums and social media online instantly. Now, the eerie part, this is a recurring pattern. Clearly, there's something up with either the sourcing of where Royal Caribbean is getting these glass panels or the architecture of these mega ships, because it also keeps happening on other big ships like Icon of the Seas. They've had similar issues recently. Now, there's no confirmed cause yet, or at least that Royal Caribbean is divulging, but cruisers are speculating from everything from design flaws to temperature stress. I think it's more of a design flaw issue because all cruise ships deal with temperature stress and the rough conditions of the seas, but this problem seems to be almost exclusive to Royal Caribbean and particularly pervasive on their big ships. But for now, Royal is staying mum. And there's been enough of these issues. They also had their water slide incident. That's enough to raise eyebrows. So I hate to say this, but if you're taking a cruise, especially on a Royal Caribbean big ship, Icon class, Oasis class, keep your eyes open, listen for cracks, and if you start to see a structural issue, don't assume someone else has already reported it and get the heck out of Dodge. Now, onto a different kind of shock. Carnival messed with its loyalty program. I'm talking massive. They fumbled the ball earlier this summer, and cruisers revolted. People were big mad. I'm big mad. I don't apologize for being mad. I worked really hard and spent a lot of money to get platinum, and I don't like it. Now, Carnival has started to quietly walk back a little bit of this. Now, when they first rolled out the changes back in early summer, I actually was on a Carnival cruise when the news broke, and it was kind of mayhem and pandemonium, and immediately everyone's like, nope, big nope, heck nope, this is awful. So this VIFP loyalty overhaul has been wildly unpopular. And I said then that they were gonna have to walk it back, that they really misunderstood the concept of consumer psychology and loyalty of their cruisers and the perception of loyalty, because yeah, these are for-profit corporations. That's how we act as consumers. That's why we go to Carnival, despite issues that they have a lot of times, because we are loyal, because we perceive they're loyal to us. Now, just like I said they would, they did start to walk it back, but I kind of think that they made it worse. Now, what they did is they have rolled out a new plan that benefits their Diamond cruiser. Basically now, Diamond cruisers are grandfathered in to their Diamond status. And they did throw a little bone to us Platinum members and basically are starting us with 10,000 of these star points. So we start off at gold once the changes take effect, and we have to earn our way through spending, of course, to get back to our Platinum status. Now, what they're doing that's really raising some eyebrows, and I think is Pretty smart, but also pretty shady, is they have rolled out some special deals for targeted cruisers. Not everyone is getting these deals, but some are, where you're getting 2 or 3 times the earn of your days at sea. And the intention here is to help platinum cruisers get to diamond before next summer when these changes roll out. So what's happening is you have a lot of cruisers who are frantically booking cruises they otherwise wouldn't take, taking advantage of these 2 times and 3 times offers, trying to get to diamond before that clock stops ticking, and therefore they'll be grandfathered into diamond status and not stuck at platinum status, which is basically gold in a couple of years. So it really seems like another money grab from Carnival. Personally, I'm a pretty good distance away from diamond. I'm not gonna chase points, but I'll be honest, this puts such a bad taste in my mouth. Even if it's a short few days from diamond, I don't think I would go chasing it anyway, because it's really changed my whole perspective when it comes to Carnival, and not in a good way. So I wanna know, what do you think about these changes? I know how everyone feels about the VIFP changes, which is the vast majority of people do not like it, and they have changed their thoughts on Carnival in a negative way. But what do you think specifically about this change to now benefit the diamond members and throw a bone, if you could even say that, to us platinum members? Now let's talk about a little bit more of an uplifting story. We talked about Tropical Storm Imelda, and one cruise ship that was impacted by this is Enchantment of the Seas, but it was impacted in a way that you probably don't expect. Enchantment of the Seas was out on a sailing when a small raft was spotted drifting near Cuba. Now, this is not uncommon, unfortunately, but this is a pretty heroic situation. A dozen people were on board. Obviously, the small raft was in distress, so the captain turned the ship around, launched a rescue, and brought those individuals on board. There, the crew offered medical care, water, and food until Mexican authorities took over. Now, it's easy to forget that these floating resorts that we're on are also subject to maritime law and to moral and ethical duty. Captains are required to render aid at sea, but even more so, moments like this are powerful reminders that the ocean is not just a playground. It's vast, it's unpredictable, and it's not meant for small handmade craft. Although I do understand why these people are on these small craft, but kudos to the crew of Enchantment of the Seas for this heroic rescue. And now, one more story that has not gotten quite enough attention, at least I don't think, but it matters more than cruisers might realize. The US government shutdown is going to impact cruisers. TSA agents and customs officers, they will keep working, but without pay. Now, what does this mean for cruising? Cruise ports would technically stay open, but passport processing delayed, security lines much longer and slower, and travel industry revenue, experts project a loss of $1 billion per week. Now, this isn't just about political drama, but it is a real threat to cruise logistics. So if you have a cruise coming up soon, I head out for my next one in just a week. Here's your takeaway. Always arrive early at the port, earlier than usual. Make sure you're not going last minute. You're not flying in the same day of your cruise, because the chances now of some delay or cancellation happening is greater than it would when we're not in a government shutdown. Make sure all your documents are current, and for any international cruise, including Canada, make sure you verify your passport validity. There is that passport 6-month validity rule where even if your passport isn't expired, it can't expire for the next 6 months. Otherwise, it is not valid for international travel. Now, a shutdown does not mean closed ports, but it does mean extra chaos. So just make sure that you are prepared.